back in 2009, 2010 was a good span of television like prowess, you know? Even 2011, because you went from Breaking Bad and then you went to Walking Dead. Damn, AMC, you were doing good. And then 2011 came, and what was on the block? You got Game of Thrones, and then AMC was like, let's take a break, and they stopped making good stuff, and Netflix was like,
hey, what about Better Call Saul?
Better Call Saul came around in like 2016 or something, 2017.
Yeah, so it came out across later.
Yeah, you don't understand when I say take a break, that 7 years goes by in between that time where they were coming out with good show, and then huge, just we're going to ride those two shows forever. They did have *Halt and Catch Fire*, which ran which was okay, but that was for a niche audience. That wasn't like worldwide like Breaking Bad has become. Point being, The Walking Dead, when it first came out, was one of the first shows that had like a legitimate movie director directing the episodes, although he was fired after the first season. You also had all-star talent with the cast. It just seemed like it was something different, and everybody who worked in the industry wanted to be a part of that first season of The Walking Dead.
And not only that, after the Frank Darabont got fired, the cast came out, and it's been made very clear that a lot of them wish that they had kind of like stuck up for him more at the time, because they did not want him fired. They really, really liked him as a director.
And if you were a fan, you did too. Now, the show itself kind of held up. It would have its good episodes and bad episodes after season 1, but what really ended up happening by, I would say, season 6 and onward was that it just became quantity over quality, and you had your villains in Negan, and you had Rick, and then once Rick left, you had the rest of the Hilltop crew, and even Maggie left for a while, and if you weren't like a huge fan, I don't know how many people would stick around for that full journey.
I think the episode that turned a lot of people off from The Walking Dead was the season 6 finale. You didn't need to know who Negan was to know that he was going to be a huge character. And
had you read the comics by the time that rolled around?
So the funny thing was I had not made it to issue 100 when Negan is introduced, so I didn't know who was going to die.
But you knew that Negan was coming.
Yes.
Yes. I thought I remembered that you had told me stuff about Negan before we actually watched that season 7 premiere.
I had learned about him. I knew who the character was because they were already mentioning him in season 6 of The Walking Dead, but I hadn't ever been introduced to him.
Does he whistle in the comics? I assume he
must.
All right. Okay. So anyways, Negan spends a lot of time taking over as the main character once Rick leaves. Also, you have Lauren Cohan returning as Maggie later on in the series. You have Daryl, and I think Carol survived by the end of The Walking Dead, and they're making spin-off series about them, or they were starting to.
So many spin-offs. You have the Rick and Michonne show coming. It's set to premiere in 2024, and then you have The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. That's set to premiere on October 1st of this year.
I did see the finale of The Walking Dead, and I honestly don't remember it very well, like at all. I just remember the teaser at the very end. And so,
what's the teaser at the end?
It has to do with the Rick storyline. But let's get into this show. So they finally decided, the Walking Dead universe has finally decided to merge itself with the DC universe. And I myself could not be more excited about that.
What are you talking about?
It's the Walking Dead DC. Dead City.
Oh, okay.
Obviously. I think that joke's been made a billion times. Anyways, this first episode's called Old Acquaintances, and it starts with Maggie waking up in a hospital bed. It's abandoned. There's flowers on the side. She walks outside. No?
No.
Okay. How interesting would that have been, though? Had they just, played it back?
I would have hated it.
You would have hated it?
I would have hated it.
How did you like how they actually... Okay, so the crux of the episode is this. Maggie has to team up with Negan, the guy who killed her husband in cold blood, to go chase down one of his protégés who has raided her camp and kidnapped her teenage kid. In the first scene, we see Maggie. She's in Jersey, and she's looking out at New York City. You can see the Empire State Building and what it's become. She's also seeing, because it was an epicenter for the zombie outbreak, as most big cities would be, I would think, she can see just massive hordes of zombies just walking the streets during the daytime, and then she gets attacked by a zombie herself, and she gets to beat one up. However, she makes a lot of noise while she's doing it, and I'm wondering why all those other zombies who are around didn't turn around and start attacking her as well. Point is, that's our introduction back to this universe.
I really like the cinematography for that scene. I thought that they made New York look really cool, and I learned that actually wasn't supposed to be
I could tell.
Intro scene.
I can tell that because the showrunner at the end of the episode, it was like he didn't know what the beginning scene was still, because he said the first time we see New York is when the mist fades away and we see the city at night. and it's just scary looking. And then I was like, but that's not how we see it in the show. I just watched your episode.
The first scene was supposed to be the bar scene, and then I think it was Lauren Cohan, who was also an executive producer on this, along with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, said, no, we need to know, the viewers need to know when this takes place,
also,
where it is.
Yeah. Also, because most of the episode takes place at night, and just the visuals aren't as cool because they're able to make a lot of cheap tricks to make it so that you're not necessarily seeing full wide shots of city stuff. When you saw it in the morning light, like we did in that first scene, it looked better. So I agree with you. The cinematography out of all the time that we saw in New York, that looked the most like The Last of Us, which is the thing to compare it to.
So yeah, I had that written down, and I was wondering how much is it going to be like The Last of Us, because that's the biggest show that has come out, I feel like, in the past 5 years.
The biggest zombie show.
Yeah, especially, well, just dealing with zombies, but I mean, for Max, it's been huge. And I didn't want it to just feel like a complete ripoff of that, even though we've been introduced to Maggie and Negan before.
And there was definitely some elements that I'll get into when we get into our pros and cons. But first, I want to touch on some stuff that I didn't actually have too much of an opinion on. First of all, New Babylon and the New Babylon Marshals. Were they ever in the comics, the Robert Kirkman comics?
From what I remember, no.
No, at least where you got to? Because you finished, but did they continue on afterwards?
I don't think so. I think that
you think they are...
I think it stopped.
Then why is Robert Kirkman still shown so much in the credits? I understand maybe one line of him being okay, he created the comic book universe, but is he still creating stuff just for the TV shows independently?
I don't think that the other TV shows, like the spinoffs, like The World Beyond or Tales of the Walking Dead, are based on any type of comic book.
All right, so the New Babylon Federation of the United States is its own separate thing. There are no booze, there are no gambling, no drugs, no prostitution. They want tranquility and order. And they have these marshals who come out there, and for anybody who's been doing stuff that's against the law, they will go in, they will implement justice.
How happy were you to see Gaius Charles make his return? Yeah, Gaius Charles make his return to acting.
From where?
You didn't recognize him?
I recognized him. I just didn't go through the process of looking.
Smash, Friday Night Lights.
Oh,
Grey's Anatomy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know him from Grey's Anatomy.
Pan Am.
Okay.
Him.
Yeah. No, Smash was the running back.
Yes.
No, that's cool that he was he the one who plays the main one though.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I have his name written down here, Pearlie Armstrong. His little monologue in the dry cleaners when he's going through trying to find Maggie and Negan, and he's trying to get Maggie to turn herself in and say, "I'll listen to you. I'm a family man. I can understand what you're going through, but if I find you, and I will find you, I'm going to have to kill you or something
if
like that.
If I find you first.
Yeah, it's not going to go your way." The point is, I like that. That was one of my first pros for the show. I thought they did his character well. However, just having the New Babylon and New Babylon Marshall storyline, that was kind of something that we were just being introduced to for the first time. And I wasn't as sold on that quite yet, because it was how is that even working? It seems like there are still bad groups operational. And so this is just a new group that's trying to be the new government of the states, which is very much like The Last of Us.
I was trying to see how much civilization had returned post the first season of The Walking Dead, because I was having a hard time realizing it, because you have people going to the bars just kind of randomly and drinking and everything, but it still seems like you have a ton of zombies out, and I'm sure that they address it in the finale of The Walking Dead, but I was trying to gauge because I couldn't really tell.
It does seem like a certain amount of civility has returned. It's just kind of in that apocalyptic stage where it's a couple steps after, maybe a generation after everything has exploded in society. This is just the first steps at rebuilding, or at least that's what they're hoping. And Maggie is there, and she's looking for Negan right at the start of the show. And at first I think she's just a bounty hunter. I thought, okay, well, she's just trying to get a price for him, kind of like it was Cowboy Bebop. She's been paid by the Federation to go after him, which I thought was a win-win for her because she hates him.
Yeah, when she gets in the fight scene, she actually reminded me of Amelia Harcourt from Peacemaker, especially the knife in the boot scene where all she has to do is click it. That reminded me a little bit of Kingsman as well.
Came in handy a lot for her. It also seemed like she almost killed the person that she first fought, but then the lady who was holding her down, it looked like she kicked her in the side, right in the kidney, but then after that you saw her walking around and just holding her hand. So I don't know who she actually kicked with her boot, or if it just didn't hurt her that much.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It was multiple times too. It wasn't just once.
she kicked her in the... Okay, all right. But Maggie being presented as a badass is nothing new. We've seen her do that for the last however many years now that she's the leader of Hilltop, which apparently still exists. It's just not at Hilltop. And another thing that confused me was that I thought because the series was filmed in Georgia, it actually took place in Georgia. But I had to look up that Hilltop actually took place in Virginia. Like that's where so it makes more sense why she made it to New York so quickly. Because
even though it was in New York, they actually filmed in Jersey. So it was like in between both of those things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you say they filmed in Jersey, even the city scenes?
Yeah, I think so. I think that the city scenes were... He talked about the VFX artists and everything.
Yeah, but you're saying none of it actually took place in New York, despite being called
I think
Good
some
City?
of it did, but majority of it was New Jersey.
Let's at this point just jump to our pros and cons, okay?
Yes.
So yeah, you've got the new Babylon, the Babylon Marshals. One other thing I will say, though, is I'd forgotten about the time jump. So when they said that Maggie's son had been kidnapped as collateral, I was like, oh, okay, so they took a toddler. and then they look over to him. Also, it surprised me when she called him Herschel, because I apparently had blanked that out. No, I was like, you named your kid after your dad? That seems so strange. Like, who else? His first name. Not like his middle name or something, but like his first name. So her dad's name is Herschel and her son's name is Herschel. Anyways, he's a teenager. Maggie does not look that old. Like, she does. They show clips of her in the past when she's like seeing Glenn get his eye like gouged out by Negan's bat, and she still looks fairly similar to that. Like, it does not seem like 15, 16 years have gone by.
Even when the cast was trying to summarize the episode, it seemed like Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Lauren Cohan also did not realize how much time had passed, because Jeffrey Dean Morgan said this takes place 2 years after the finale, and then Lauren Cohan said it took place 5 years after the finale. So really, it was just in between those time frames.
If you say so. If we've actually seen Herschel in the past, I don't remember that. But he's played by clearly a teenager whose voice has dropped, and he's like well on his way to adulthood. But Maggie, it's kind of the same situation that you fall into with For All Mankind, is that the characters themselves, they're gonna have to put some old man or old woman makeup on her pretty soon in order to like adjust for that time scale. Anyways, the next con that I had, though, was how is everyone so incredible at tracking? I get that in the apocalypse, you have to depend on that skill a lot, so it's going to get better. But Maggie finds Negan within days of her colony being assaulted and like them and this new group having stolen their like goods.
It was fast.
And somehow she figures out, not only from that bar scene, but the exact motel room he's in just by walking past it. Like, she's just in the outside thing, and she puts her ear up to it. Like, how does she know where Negan is?
No, I agree with you. They did try to kind of explain it.
Did they?
When she first meets Negan, she's like, I was able to find you super quick. So it was like,
how is that explaining it?
The writing was pointing it out, because I think they were trying to say that Negan, especially after the finale, and has kind of turned like his character to that huge shift.
I think they're trying to say the grace of saying, okay, she found the bar that he's at, or the place that he's staying, but the idea of out of all those motel things, she wasn't doing anything other than just walking past them and putting her ear to the door. And why was the door unlocked? You would think that he would lock the door to... Anyways, so she's caught doing that. But also, the new Babylon Marshals, they're able to find Maggie super quick as well. Not just once, when they meet her right before she goes across the ship in NYC, and she ends up having to kidnap one of the marshals, the trainee marshals. But also, when they get to New York City, and it's Maggie, and it's Negan, and Marshall Jr., they have like a 30-minute head start. They can go anywhere in the city, and there's massive zombie hordes everywhere, and they get caught up in one, and still... the marshals are able to find them lickety-split, and they even go to the exact dry cleaner that they're at. Like, these guys have either an amazing sense of, like, direction, or they've like put a tracker on them, but trackers don't exist anymore. So
on top of that, the marshals, I could not tell where their morals lied, because they were trying to come after Negan for like things he had done in the past, and I was like, okay, they're supposed to be good guys, but the first scene you see is them going to the bar and literally killing that woman that was holding Maggie down just because she, even after she gave them information. And I didn't find them really that intimidating either. The thing I found most annoying about Pearlie Armstrong, again, the main marshal, was that I know you liked his monologue at the very end. That's all he did in this episode.
Yeah.
He monologued.
Up until then, I didn't really have an opinion on New Babylon, because it felt like any of those other introductions that they've done in The Walking Dead, like the Colony, or what are they called? Like, what was the one that Ezekiel had?
The Kingdom. The
Kingdom, yeah. Like, it felt like a new government that they were just trying to force on everybody else. So I didn't... have an opinion one way or the other, but I do feel like by Maggie not killing, Pearly, that he's clearly going to have like an ongoing arc in the show.
Yeah.
Like there's only 5 regulars in this entire cast, which was a pro for me because I'm like, keep the cast small and center it around storylines about them. Do not divide it and try to conquer it that way because that has not worked in The Walking Dead in the past.
Not only the cast is small, the episode number is only 6, which I think is like one of the biggest.
It feels like a
pros.
prequel series or something, but it's not.
But the fact that it's only 6 means that they really can't do the 16 episodes. Everyone goes away. Everyone meets up in the mid-season finale. Then there's some new villain they have to introduce. Everything is introduced, and it's like it's pretty straightforward.
And
I feel like
that would be great, but the production quality itself doesn't feel like it's up to par with 2023 The Last of Us or even season 1 The Walking Dead. It feels like it was maybe kind of discounted because we have 2 main characters we can spend up for them, but other than that it takes place in New York City and maybe the zombies will look cool, but other than that I just don't see
even on the boat when they were going into NYC and the smoke
the CGI was not as great.
And I was just like, this isn't really that amazing to me. Like I was saying before, the first scene I thought was better than the whole entire last sequence looked.
I've been going over my cons. Do you have any you want to add?
The hand-to-hand combat action scenes I found to be, you could tell how staged they were. But like when you go back to the original Walking Dead, it seemed like those action sequences actually had like 10 stakes to them and they were well fought. This seemed like you could tell that it was staged and the
Not
actors.
Not always. It did feel like after a while it got kind of stale. The stunt performers are always giving it their all, or even when it's not even stunt performers, but I think they're trying. It's just that like after seeing it so many times, there's only so many ways that you can kill a zombie. There's only so many ways that you can punch a person or like beat them up.
And done better in different TV shows. Also, I found the way that Negan, him having to look after Jenny, even though I know that he like has a kid.
Yeah, I was saving that one.
And I was just like, wait, why are you even introducing her if you're going to be introducing the kid later? I don't understand.
I think we can both agree that Jeffrey Dean Morgan is a great actor.
Yes.
Love to see him show up in stuff like this. We love to see him show up in Supernatural or Grey's Anatomy. Any of the stuff that he's done, it seems like he always adds a nice little vibe to it. Yes. I even liked him as Negan, where you were talking about how people left in season 6 because it got so violent and unnecessary. That just reminded me of how people hated Ramsay in The Walking Dead, and I liked Ramsay in The Walking Dead.
You mean Ramsay in Game of Thrones?
That's what I meant. Sorry. Yes, that's exactly what I meant. But Negan, though, I don't understand. Like, as long as you keep him as a villain, it makes sense. But once they started doing his full redemption arc, and I understand that's what Carl was pushing for in his entire, like, before he died.
And it somewhat happens in the comics as well.
Okay, but he still has the same smug, smarmy attitude. It's just that he's now saying, I do believe I paid for what I've done, right?
Yeah.
But you can say that maybe to everyone else but Maggie. For Maggie, I feel like she should never get over this Glenn thing. Like, I understand that's why they're teaming them up, but I honestly would rather have preferred this show be about how Maggie decided to just hunt Negan Rambo style through the streets of New York City while the zombie outbreak is still raging, trying to kill this man, and Negan is just running his ass off trying to get away or trying to kill her back. That would have been a cool, like, Maggie versus Negan. Now, I don't know how they would have crafted that because of how The Walking Dead ended up, like, making him a good guy, especially when he took care of the Whisperers, I believe it was. Like, he killed Alpha, right?
Yeah.
He slept with Alpha, he killed Alpha. And that counts as redemption. But he's also the guy who had a harem of women. He was a cult leader.
Yep.
He literally just killed people for fun. It just does not calculate in my brain how you can see him as a good guy.
So you didn't buy Negan turning into a good guy.
It's not that I don't buy his, like, he's a great actor. It's just that I don't see how Maggie would ever forgive that. Like she said, she's like, you don't put something like that to bed. Yet this series is exactly what that's trying to do. Mm-hmm. And I agree that Negan also having that relationship with Ginny, I think is her name, just feels like a cheap version of The Last of Us, where they're like, we're going to stick him with another Joel and Ellie situation, except we're not going to give Ellie any lines. We're just going to make a little sap story that we've seen a billion times with The Walking Dead.
What did you think of the Croat, the villain, that they showed at the very end?
Okay, so with the Croat, he's called Croat because he's Croatian. And it's just like with John Wick 3, or John Wick 4, where you had Kane because he's got a cane.
Yeah.
Yes. And his modus operandi is that he's similar to Negan because he's Negan's protege, but he also scares Negan, which I don't really understand. We've gotten a lot of villains over the course of The Walking Dead. Good ones, bad ones, you name it. Got the governor, the Whisperers, Terminus, cops at that one hospital. And so, like, they've seen and the idea that Negan would be scared of this dude, a guy that we see with 2 henchmen in one scene, and then in the other scene, he's literally just kind of mocking Maggie's son, Herschel, kind of in the same route that Negan mocked Carl when he kidnapped him.
Right.
I understood that was supposed to be a similarity, but like it just doesn't feel like he's threatening. He is missing an ear.
Well, he's missing an ear, and I think that is because of the torture that Negan put sometimes his crew through.
You think so?
Yeah, I think that was supposed to be, you remember when he put like the iron on someone's face. I think that is what that's a good that was trying to show.
Yeah.
But I just found him to be the most, again, it's a problem with The Walking Dead, cartoonish villain. He cuts a zip line at the end of the episode, and that is supposed to be something that is just so villainous.
But he's supposed to be so smart and because there's the type of villains who get mad about everything, and he's supposed to be calculating because he just waits for the guy and then he entertains everybody by cutting the zip line.
It was so ridiculous, and that's supposed to be the big bad for this series.
The guy died like Wile E. Coyote.
Yes, you even see his body fall.
You almost heard what's the name of that one shot where it's like,
The Wilhelm scream.
Yeah, you almost heard the Wilhelm scream as he did it. But yeah, he is just one of 1,000 villains. He doesn't seem particularly special, but in his defense, there's not really a way of separating yourself if you've seen the original Walking Dead, now that you know. Because every time they would try to amp it up, and at a certain point, you've maxed it out.
The only thing that I was happy about with this villain was it did seem like, aside from maybe the kills, he was taking himself more seriously than someone like Negan back in like season 7 of The Walking Dead.
We only got like 3 minutes with him, so maybe he'll grow on you. But like the last con that I'll point out for now is that Ginny's probably going to come back, and I'm not going to care. Like, I can already tell that Ginny's going to be... What did you think of the old lady? The one who, like, blew out
the blew out the candle? Yes. I actually got a little scared from that. I'm not going to lie. The jump scare did work for me there.
All right, so let's transition over to our pros then. There was Pearlie Armstrong's little monologue, which I've already mentioned. He also has a storyline where he's going to try to, I don't think, deliver that letter that he has, but he has, like, a brother named Joel Armstrong, which I think he'll team up with at some point, or find out what happened to him. Negan gets the F-bomb. There's always one F-bomb in, like, the important episodes.
That they're allowed in AMC. I think it's one F-bomb. I think Aaron Paul even talked about it with Breaking Bad, and they use it here.
And I think he was like, fuck me, or something like that when they first see New York, which, again, was supposed to be a way better shot than I think it actually came across. I actually liked it better when he gave the nope line with the cockroaches. So the cockroaches themselves, they looked like they were meat roaches, like they had adapted into eating people, like dead bodies, which is scary. But the scene where they showed like the full a mass of them like eating the body, the zombie body, like that came across so CGI. It looks so fake to me. It reminded me a lot of the Supernatural episode, the Bugs episode. I did like it when they were scurrying about on people's skin and they were like having to wipe them off and stuff. And that's when Negan was like, nope, and he got out of there. That was a funny pro for me. But overall, I didn't like I didn't think the cockroaches looked as cool as they could.
I thought that the cockroaches were a good idea. Yeah, and I like the fact that they implemented it into the show. But that also, it was right after the zombies were walking off the roofs, and I found that a funny way to kill off the zombies. So I liked that scene, and I did like the cockroach scene.
Okay, that was actually one of the cons I missed, was the raining zombies. I know that was supposed to be threatening, but if you've been to New York, you know streets are super wide. All you have to do is walk in the middle of the street, and all those raining zombies will kill themselves, and you won't be hurt at all because you'll be in the middle of the street. Like, it won't... There's no way their bodies could fall out of... There's no wind that's going to be pushing them towards the middle of the street. Also, there's scaffolding everywhere in New York, and I know eventually they do go under some scaffolding, but the idea that you would be under a lot of streets that wouldn't have it just seemed a little unbelievable to me. Like, there's plenty of ways of getting around, and I don't even know how the zombies really heard them from that high up in the buildings. So that was a negative for me, the raining zombies. I did like it when Negan was talking about the tiny Statue of Liberty that he got.
Right.
The little figurine. Because I got one of those too back in the day. So I feel like enough people have gotten those in the back.
I felt like it was just another way that they were trying to humanize Negan, and whenever they try to do that, I just feel like it doesn't work.
Can you remind me, was Maggie ever turned, or like, did she ever get like kidnapped to be one of Negan's wives, or was it just
no? That never happened.
Okay, because I do remember Eugene's storyline. He tried to help one of the wives.
That was season 7, or I think.
Yeah, and it was just, see, that's so creepy to me. Like, how does he get forgiven for stuff like that? And so, yeah.
I did enjoy the Easter eggs in the show. First off, there's a tank in the intro, which obviously is a reference to the first episode of The Walking Dead and the second episode when Glenn saves them, as well as Too Far Gone, the mid-season finale of season 4 with the governor and the prison and them fighting. You have the deer in the intro as well, which is a reference to season 2, episode 1, right before Carl gets shot. The 2 walkers being hanged, I think that was like 10 minutes in. That reminded me of Gregory being hanged in the season 9 premiere.
Okay.
And then you have Pearlie Armstrong.
Poor Gregory. I remember he was like a shrimp himself, but like he wasn't a good guy. But the actor who played him was the man in the booth.
Xander Berkeley.
Yeah.
But then you have also Pearlie Armstrong in the scene you were talking about earlier, saying that he has a wife and 3 daughters, the same amount of daughters that Herschel Green had in season 2.
Yeah. Wasn't Maggie pregnant for like multiple seasons in The Walking Dead? And now her kid is like 16 years old.
I think so.
All right. It's just going to be hard. It's going to be a hard sell when they're reunited and Maggie's just like, oh, my son. And I'm just going to be like, really? That's your kid? Overall, what would you give the show?
I would give the show a 5 out of 10 because even though it does focus on Negan and Maggie, and I think that they are 2 characters that you can definitely make a TV show off of, all of the other characters in me I didn't care about. I found boring and I mentioned my problems with it. So 5 out of 10 for me. What about you?
They also did the thing where they mentioned the title within the first 10 minutes where Negan looks at Maggie and he's like, yeah, we're old acquaintances. Like, obviously he wasn't going to say friends, and that was the point of the title. I thought overall that and this is just going to sound like what I've said everything in recap, villains aren't intimidating, the zombies are slow, and that's in comparison to The Last of Us where they're actually like running around and scaring people and making out with you when you don't want them to. The bugs looked fake. The production value feels low for 2023. Shooting in the dark is a further way to skirt the budget, and it feels like that. Negan and Ginny's relationship feels like a cheap version of Joel and Ellie. Negan and Maggie should absolutely not be friends, so overall I have to give this a 4 out of 10.
4 out of 10, okay.
Yeah.
The reviews have actually been positive. 69% on Rotten Tomatoes and actually an 8.2 on IMDb with around 2,000 reviews. CNN titled their review, The Walking Dead, Dead City breathes life into its most satisfying spin-off. And I do have to admit, like, even with the Tales of the Walking Dead, I think that this episode was better than that. Because
I expect it to be better than the spin-offs have been up until this point because we didn't have the main stars as part of them. And then also I expect it to be probably better than the last few seasons of The Walking Dead where they were really dependent on having to keep all those characters' storylines alive despite not really having a reason to. Does that make sense?
No, I understand.
So
what
like
you're saying.
keeping the cast small is super important. However, if I would just, I'm not looking like this. Nothing about this excited me.
So
that's why I say 4 out of 10.
You sound like the Hollywood Reporter. They really hated the last 4 episodes, but the last 2 episodes, episode 5 and 6, they said really is like a great. They praised it a lot. So I'm actually looking forward to the end of the season.
Maybe I'll stick around for that, but I would need the time, and there are a lot of shows out there that are better. So Happy Valley, go check that one out.
My question is, what if these spinoffs came out when like The Walking Dead was in its heyday, like the 2010 to 2015, because there was a time there, especially in those first 5 seasons, where The Walking Dead was pulling in anywhere from 13 million to 17 million viewers an episode.
I would have liked it more. No, I can tell that because it wasn't 2023. In the last 8 years, our show, or our TV base, or our like understanding of how good a apocalyptic show can be has changed because of how many have come out.
No, absolutely, because The World Beyond came out in 2020, got terrible reviews. That was the second spinoff, I think, of The Walking Dead, and its pilot only got 1.5 million viewers. Tales of the Walking Dead's pilot only got 0.5 million viewers. But when Fear the Walking Dead came out, which was back in 2015, that pilot attracted 10 million viewers. And the show, and the original show.
That one I remembered. I liked the pilot too. Yeah.
Yeah, the original show also had an 8.7 rating on IMDb for the longest time, and then as it kept on going, that lowered all the way down to what it is now, which is an 8.1.
That's not that bad.
So, I mean...
I get what you're saying.
So, I mean, like, I just feel like had this happened when The Walking Dead was really popular, maybe these shows would have worked out better.
I mean, Maggie and Negan were still essential to the actual main storyline, so they needed to keep them around. And also, Lauren Cohan, even after she took her little hiatus and went to do Whiskey Cavalier, right?
Yeah.
And Negan, I think, he stuck around the entire time, didn't he? He just
Ever since he was
he took over for Rick.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it's kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time because, yes, he was the star of this amazing show, but it was like kind of a echo of how great it used to be. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Overall, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.